Knowledge for Men, episode 30.
Welcome to KnowledgeForMen.com, where boys turn into men, where men turn into leaders, into lions, the ferocious few who stand strong, a place where you grow to become the man you were born to be. It's time to take massive action towards the life you want. Get the health, get the relationships, business, and career you've always dreamed of. Achieve a level of success and happiness that you've been searching for so many years. Life has given you enough, and it's time to take a stand and take full control of your life. Stand with us as we interview the most inspiring and successful leaders to give you real-world advice to crush life and awaken the sleeping giant inside of you. Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible.com. Get a free audiobook download today at kfmbook.com. There's over 100,000 titles to choose from for your smartphone, tablet, or computer. It's a perfect way to listen to your favorite books in the car, in the gym, or at home. Check out kfmbook.com to start learning in your downtime.
All right, guys, I'm here with Dr. Robert Glover, the author of No More Mr. Nice Guy, a proven plan for getting what you want in love, sex, and life. Dr. Glover is an international and recognized authority on the nice guy syndrome, and he's a frequent guest on radio talk shows and has been featured in many national publications across the world. Through his book, online classes, workshops, podcasts, blogs, and therapy groups, Dr. Glover has helped change the lives of thousands of men around the world. Dr. Glover, I'm happy to have you on the show.
Andrew, it's great to be with you. Thank you for asking me.
All right, let's roll right into your favorite success quote and why.
Okay, I'm going to cheat. I'm going to share two of them, but I'll do it quickly. So if I was going to tattoo anything on my body in terms of a success quote, the first one is, I'll handle it. And I got that from the book Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway by Dr. Susan Jeffers. And I read that about 25 years ago when I was going through a divorce. And I didn't know how I was going to handle it, but I fell asleep every night repeating that to myself. I'll handle it. No matter what happens, I'll handle it. So whenever I'm stressed, whenever I'm anxious, whenever I'm doing something new or out of my comfort zone, I repeat that to myself regularly. I'll handle it. And I got another one, and actually I stole this one from kind of a cool but cheesy movie called The Edge with Anthony Hopkins and Alec Baldwin. They're up in Alaska, and a bear's chasing them, trying to kill them. And Anthony Hopkins uses a phrase several times that I'd tattoo this on my arm. And basically it's just what one man can do, another man can do. And I love the idea of that because it's so easy to look around and say, well, that person accomplished that, and we'll say, fill in the blank. Well, he's smarter than me, he's stronger than me, he's richer than me, he had more opportunity than me. But I'm a big believer, what one man can accomplish, another man can accomplish. So that keeps me going when my brain wants to start telling me, oh, you can't do that, or you're not good enough for that. So what one man can do, another man can do. If it's been done, it can be done again.
I like that. And they actually go hand in hand with each other. If he can do it, I can do it, and I'll handle it is really about ownership and taking responsibility for your own life.
Exactly. Both of them are really about just taking responsibility for self. I like that.
All right. And now I hand the mic over to you, and let's learn more about Dr. Glover. How did you get started with what you do? Share with the audience your journey.
Okay, well, I'll tell you how I got to be where I am right now. And what I do, when people ask me what I do, it's not a short answer. I'm technically a licensed marriage and family therapist. I'm a psychotherapist by training and education and experience, but I'm also an author. As you mentioned, I've written a book called No More Mr. Nice Guy. I started and run an online university where men and women can take self-help, personal growth courses online. I write and record podcasts, much as like you do, for primarily dating and relationship and work-related issues. I do workshops and seminars. I write. So I do a lot of different stuff. And as you and I were chatting just before we went live, I live down in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, half the year. That's where I am as we talk right now. And in the Seattle area, the other half of the year. So I've got a very mobile lifestyle. I do everything over the internet, everything online. I had a private practice as a psychotherapist doing groups and couple counseling individual for about 25 years up in the Seattle area. But how did I get to where I am in this moment, in kind of how I walk the planet and the work I do with men and women, but especially men? Kind of the end point that you mentioned is my book, No More Mr. Nice Guy. That opened a lot of doors for what I'm doing. But I'll back up and tell you how I got from, we'll call it point A to that point B. Kind of get in the Wayback Machine, go back about 25 plus years. I was a minister. I was married. I was working in a very conservative church. I'd grown up in that church. I had a couple degrees in religion. I had a very young child. And kind of the baseball bat upside my head, kind of that changed my life, was I got involved with a member of my congregation. I had an affair with a woman who was in my church. And it changed me in a lot of ways. I'd never been a very big risk taker. I always thought I was really a nice guy, that I always did everything right. I followed the rules, I stayed within the lines, and I would have told people, I'm a nice guy. I'm one of the nicest guys you'd ever want to meet. And when that affair, it didn't just happen overnight. It grew over actually quite a long period of time. And when it kind of got to its full-blown place, I remember standing up in front of the congregation of people that I worked for and looking out there and seeing this woman that I was having a secret, hidden relationship with. And I remember asking myself, how did I get here? I mean, how did I get to this place of doing something that was very much outside of my belief system of what was appropriate, what was right, what a good person would be doing? And in a moment of just pondering that, how did I get here? The answer hit me. As I said, it was like a baseball bat upside the head. And the answer was, I've been out of integrity in so many areas of my life for so long. This was just one more step in that direction. And it dawned on me that while I thought I was a nice guy, i.e., I thought I treated people well, I avoided conflict, I tried to do the right thing, I tried to make a good appearance, I realized that I wasn't really a nice guy, in that I kept secrets, I hid things, I especially didn't tell people what I felt, what I thought, what I wanted, what I believed. I'd gotten fired from my first ministry job for teaching something that I believed to be true, and some people in that congregation said, no, we don't like that, you're gone. And so that really even made me much more risk adverse. So here I'd been really since a child up until now about 30 at the time of as this was happening, of really doing everything to try to become what I thought other people wanted me to be and expected of me. And in that moment of time, I realized, that doesn't make me a nice guy. In fact, it totally destroys any sense of integrity or that I could be a what you see is what you get kind of guy. Okay, fast forward, I ended up leaving church, quit being a minister, left the marriage, married the woman I was having the relationship with, was then married to her for 14 years. That relationship ended about 11 years ago. And while I was in relationship with her, I hadn't learned a lot. I had that aha of, I'm out of integrity. Being out of integrity leads to problems. And I quickly slipped back into just old out of integrity behaviors. I wouldn't say what I really thought. I avoided conflict. I was trying to please my wife. And I would act out in passive aggressive ways. I'd express my anger really indirectly. And she started calling me on it. She says, I can't put up with this. You either go get some therapy or I'm leaving. And I didn't want her to leave, so I went and got some therapy. And what I did is actually joined a 12-step group and started going to a therapist. And that is when my life really began to change. And I would say maybe one of the biggest turning points of my entire life was in this 12-step group, I started revealing everything about me. Everything that I thought if people knew it about me, they'd think I was a terrible person. They would have disgust for me. They would lose respect for me. I just started, if I had anxiety about sharing it, revealing it, I told it. And it was liberating. It was actually just one of the most exciting, energizing things I've ever done, was to, in this safe place, start just revealing who I was. And then I started working with a therapist, and later on joined a men's group that I was in for a few years. And I started learning about concepts like about boundaries and about saying no and stop, or I want, or I'm going to, or don't do that, or learning how to remove myself, just learning how to be a man with integrity. What you see is what you get kind of guy. So as I started working on me, and I didn't really even realize at that moment I was working on, quote, my nice guy issues. As a couples therapist, I noticed a lot of the couples coming to see me looked a lot like what was going on with me and in my relationship. The guys were all saying, I'm a nice guy. I'm one of the nicest guys you're ever going to meet. I'm so much better than her ex-husband, or I'm different than her father or her ex-boyfriend. I do everything for her. I raise her kids. I treat her well. I buy her nice stuff. And she still gets angry at me, and she still doesn't respect me, and she still doesn't want to have sex with me. And when's it going to be my turn? I give, I give, I give. When do I get to get? And I thought, man, I can finish these guys' sentences for them. They were just like me, and all of a sudden it hit me. Hey, wait a minute. Maybe I'm not the only guy walking the planet with this belief system, this paradigm, this roadmap that just says, if I just become what everybody expects me to be, then I'll be liked and loved, and I'll get my needs met, and everything will always work out perfectly. And I thought, okay, maybe I'm not the only one. So I started my first No More Mr. Nice Guy men's group. That was over 20 years ago, and started just writing some chapters to give these guys, every other week when they came to meet in the group. Just stuff I was learning about me, just things I was pondering about how we became nice guys, what our internal paradigm is, how it manifests, how it affects dating, relationship, saying, you need to write a book. You need to go on Oprah. Well, I kept writing. I did indeed write a book. It took about 7 years to write it, about 3 years to get it published, and it did come out about 10, 11 years ago in 2003. So that is really what put me in the place I am right now, was that both that personal transformation of recognizing that this paradigm of thinking that if I'm just nice to everybody and avoid conflict and don't rock the boat and seeking approval, I thought that would give me this really good life. People would like me and love me. Everything would work out. And I came to realize the exact opposite is true. And I can give more detail about that in a little bit. But I also realized that there were lots of other guys just like me who were thinking if they just do everything right, keep the peace, avoid conflict, the women will love them and like them and want to have sex with them. They'll have great relationships with women that never get mad at them and never have any strong emotions, and they'll get the promotions just because they're such good guys. And then, of course, after I launched a website several years ago, the book came out, I came to realize this is a worldwide issue with men. And my book's been translated into 6, 7, 8 languages. I get emails from men all over the world, some who speak English, some who barely can write to me in English, telling me that they relate to this whole nice guy concept. So that's my nutshell story of how I went from being this kind of clueless, out of integrity, thinking I was a good guy kind of man, to a man that now as I walk the planet, I just try to be me. A term that popped out of my mouth one time during a seminar a couple years ago is the word authenticity. I try to live my life with authenticity and integrity. Just be me. People are either going to like me the way I am or they won't. That's okay. I'm going to keep walking the planet every day, just being me.
That's quite a journey there. And what I find interesting, like you mentioned, to your point, there are some guys being nice to everyone, thinking that if I'm nice to people, people are going to like me back, which is really being very approval seeking. What do you think about that, Dr. Glover?
Well, the way you put it is very good. You talked about the approval seeking of a nice guy. And in No More Mr. Nice Guy, I talk about what's at the core of the whole nice guy syndrome. And I'm going to kind of give you the core of it and then how that manifests. I really believe that the two core issues that all nice guys, and this would include nice girls as well, because I think nice girls existed before nice guys did, and a lot of us guys learned how to be these passively pleasing men from our mothers and from the women we were influenced by. And we can talk more about that as the strong influence of the feminine on boys growing up in culture nowadays. But there's two real issues going on with nice guy syndrome. The first one is shame. And I talk a lot about this in No More Mr. Nice Guy. And shame is an internalized belief, an inaccurately internalized belief that there's something wrong with me. I'm defective. I'm not lovable just as I am. So a lot of what nice guys are doing, either consciously or often unconsciously, is trying to deal with the deep inner sense of I'm not okay just as I am. Now, I remember back in my second marriage when I was really just starting to work on myself, my now ex-wife was reading to me some information about shame out of a John Bradshaw book. And I didn't even understand the concept, let alone relate it to myself. So I'd compartmentalized my own personal shame so deeply underneath the shell of I'm so good, I'm such a nice guy, I wasn't even aware of it. Now, I've also come to realize that there are a lot of nice guys who actually are very consciously aware of that deep sense of shame. And I call these the I'm so bad nice guy. They're very aware of how defective they feel. And again, it's an inaccurate internalization of who we are based on life experiences going back to childhood. But they're trying their hardest to still be the good guy. So shame is a core factor in nice guy syndrome. Since writing No More Mr. Nice Guy, I've continued to work with countless men and women. And the second factor I really see contributing to nice guy syndrome is anxiety. That nice guy syndrome is fundamentally an anxiety management disorder. That as a young child, to manage our anxiety, our fears, our fear of abandonment, of being scolded, of being punished, of being shamed, of having bad things happen to us, we managed that anxiety by trying to do everything right, by getting it right and not doing anything wrong. And so as nice guys, we're managing shame, we're managing anxiety. And we do those two things through 3 covert contracts. And a covert contract, as the name suggests, is hidden, is secretive, often even hidden to our own consciousness. But I promise you, not only are we usually not aware of our covert contracts, nobody else is either. And that's one reason why they're totally ineffective. But the 3 nice guy covert contracts are this. Number 1, if I'm a good guy, everybody will like me and love me. And usually nice guys tack sex on the end of that too. And the people I desire to be sexual with will desire me back. So if I'm a good guy, people will like me and love me. Number 2, if I meet other people's needs without them having to ask, then they will meet my needs without me having to ask. And you can imagine how well that probably works over time. And then the third covert contract, the third if-then equation, if I do everything right, if I don't make any mistakes, or at the very best, if I at least hide my mistakes and don't let anybody see them, then I'll have a smooth, problem-free life. Now, as you know and I know, life isn't smooth or problem-free. And in fact, that's where we grow. It's those challenges that bring out the best in us and refine us. But nice guys walk the planet with those 3 covert contracts. If I'm a nice guy, if I'm a good guy, people will like me and love me. Number 2, if I meet other people's needs without them having to ask, then they'll meet my needs without me having to ask. And number 3, if I do everything right, or at least hide my flaws and mistakes, then I'll have a smooth, problem-free life. Nothing will go wrong. I'll never get fired. My wife will never get mad at me. Women won't ever reject me. And of course, all of those covert contracts are wrong because people can't connect with somebody who's trying to be something other than what they're not. Ironically, people connect with people who are flawed, who have rough edges, who are imperfect. We don't connect well with people that present perfection or hide themselves from us. So everything that nice guys do typically fundamentally leads to the exact opposite of what they're hoping that they will get. And that's why the bottom line of breaking free from nice guy syndrome is doing certain things that help you learn to just like yourself as you are and be who you are and let the world see who you are, a perfectly, imperfectly flawed human being, bumbling your way through life, learning as you go, hopefully, and growing because of the experience. And that's what I do is help men learn how to do that.
Okay, and a question that arises now is if you're not going to be this really nice guy, then a nice guy might think, well, I don't want to be a jerk. I don't want to be this a-hole. I'm not that guy. That's not me. I'm a nice guy. So where should this guy fall then? If he is a nice guy and he doesn't want to be the jerk, where should he fall?
That's a great question, and I would say that some version of that question is probably the number one question that people always ask. Well, if I'm not a nice guy, does that mean I should be an asshole? Does that mean I should be a jerk? Because most of us, and especially nice guys, are really black and white in our thinking. Well, if I'm not being nice, that means I'd be a jerk. Well, along that line, most guys figure out that, well, that's probably not the answer either. And so I've had countless men say it in one way or another. They'll say, okay, I get that being a nice guy doesn't work, but I also get that, I don't want to be a jerk, so I want to find some happy middle ground between the two. And my answer to that is always, well, I don't know where the tipping point is between 2 dysfunctional extremes. So actually, I don't teach men to be like just less nice or a little more jerky. I teach men to become what I call a second order man. First order to me is where we're managing our anxiety and shame, and we either go to one of two extremes in our fight, flight, freeze way of living our life. One extreme is the asshole jerk. That's the fighter in the whole fight, flight, freeze continuum. Now, the opposite of that would be the nice guy. And the nice guy manages his anxiety by fleeing and freezing, avoiding, not saying anything that'll rock the boat. So that's what I call the first order man, is the man that's managing his anxiety either by intimidating people. And when I talk about managing anxiety, what I'm usually talking about is trying to control people and situations so we get what we want. The asshole jerk does that by intimidation. The nice guy does it by subtle manipulation and covert contracts. So, I'm not looking for a middle ground between that. What I teach men is how to apply things to their life to become what I call a second order or an integrated male. And that's things like becoming more conscious, having integrity, asking yourself what feels right and doing it. Learning to self-soothe their anxiety. That's why that one quote of mine, I'll handle it, is so powerful, because you can't act with integrity if your fear and anxiety is dominating you and saying, I can't do that, I'll get rejected, or I can't say what I really think, they'll get mad at me, or I can't really quit that job and go start writing a blog and recording podcasts. What will happen? So the ability to soothe self allows you to act with more integrity and be more integrated male. And the ability to develop empathy, to actually understand other people and to experience what they may be experiencing, allows you to be a more integrated person. So I teach men these skills. Like I said, the consciousness, the self-soothing, the empathy, the acting with integrity. And this is what allows you to still feel your anxiety, maybe even still experience your shame, but to, in a sense, consciously rise up out of that space and act with more integrity. Now, as they say in 12 steps, is progress, not perfection. So what I tell men is that the process of becoming a second order man, an integrated man, is an up and down, back and forth, cyclical process. You're never going to be always evolved, always authentic, always integrated. But that's the intention, is to keep moving in that direction. And when we catch ourselves slipping back into old familiar patterns, our anxiety management, shame management, okay, we at least have a roadmap now, a new roadmap of how to move back into that more conscious, integrated, second order place.
All right, thanks for breaking down the extremes of the nice guy to the macho jerk. Now, let's go into, where does the nice guy come from? Are people born this way, or is it something that happens through social conditioning?
Well, that is such an excellent question, and that's one of the questions I kind of really struggled with and have gone over and over really since I started looking at the whole issue of nice guys, that, I'm not the only one. There's lots of others like me. And at first I thought, well, maybe all nice guys get to be nice guys the same way I did. And I kind of started out with that thinking, and then soon realized that there's a multitude of nice guys out there and a multitude of factors that contribute us to this kind of thinking. And again, I'll define the nice guy as the guy who's managing shame, managing anxiety, using those three covert contracts. Now, pretty much everybody walking the planet has shame and has anxiety, but they manage them in a manifest different ways. As I said, some people are the asshole jerk, some people are more the wussy doormat, other people manage their anxiety through addictions and isolation. There's lots of different ways of doing it. So how do we get to be nice guys? Probably a combination of factors, and every guy is a little bit different. I think frequently a man might be born with somewhat of a more gentle or passive temperament. For anybody listening to this has had kids, especially had more than one child, you realize that every kid pops out different with their own temperament. So a lot of nice guys are just, in general, kind of gentle souls. We don't like conflict. We're pretty sensitive to conflict. So sometimes it's just temperament that affects it. But temperament alone doesn't create kind of the toxic paradigm of the nice guy syndrome. Usually we got to pile some more internalized experiences. And what happens to us is that when we are very young, we're narcissistic by nature. All infants, all small children are narcissistic. They believe the world revolves around them. So they believe they're the cause of everything in their world, for good or for bad. And so if we experience abandonment or unpredictability from our parents, or if one parent is angry or abusive, or if one parent is needy or smothering or dependent, or if a parent is depressed or addicted, the effects of that affect the child tremendously. In fact, you can watch children in a room if somebody starts to have an argument. Children tense up and will do something to manage their anxiety. Dogs do it as well. You can watch them as well. So the child, because they're narcissistic, always internalizes an emotional belief system that I'm the cause of what just happened to me. So therefore, there must be something wrong with me. That's where that internalized shame comes from. Now, that's an inaccurately internalized belief, but the mind doesn't know that. Emotionally, the mind believes it to be true and then keeps acting on that throughout life until maybe we get a baseball bat or a bright light on us to say, wait a minute, those belief systems that you're defective in this way, or you're not good enough, or you're unlovable, or you'll be rejected if you have a flaw, those are old, inaccurate belief systems. And they can be challenging to let go of. So I personally turned into a nice guy, partly because of temperament, partly because my father was angry and critical and moody, and I didn't want to be like him, and I wasn't wired like him. So I was more like my mother, who was sensitive and pleasing. And my mother was very codependent and tended to get her validation through me and connection with me. So I learned to be the kind of pleasing man that tries to make women happy. So that's my personal story. There's lots of other stories. Some guys grow up with tremendous abuse or abandonment. And a lot of guys grow up in families where they tell me, hey, I grew up in a Leave It to Beaver kind of family. And I'll go, well, how come you're afraid of your wife then? And how come you won't challenge your boss? And how come, you're hiding your pornography habit? Something internalize a belief system that you're not okay just as you are. So even in our Leave It to Beaver families, often we internalize a belief that we're not okay. And then I'll throw one other factor that I think's been pretty big and I think continues to become an even bigger influence. And you mentioned earlier, I don't know how old you are, but I'm going to guess you're about 30-ish. And my son and stepson are both 28. So I've seen that influence on this generation. I'm 58, so I'm kind of a baby boomer, is that most of us have grown up in a highly feminized environment. Many boys grow up with single moms, or they grow up with their mothers highly involved in their life and their fathers not really connected to them. We get into preschool, and it's all women teachers. We get into elementary school, mostly, again, women teachers, or at least it was when I was younger, and I find that's true for most men. So I tell guys, just graduating from third grade to fourth grade not only involves learning your reading, writing, and arithmetic, but also how to please a woman. Because if you don't please your woman teacher, you don't get the approval and move on to the next grade. And then we get to be junior high, and now all of a sudden we want to figure out how to get the girls to like us. And maybe if we're not the quarterback of the football team or drive a Camaro, I guess that's not the standard anymore. Now it'd be a Mitsubishi or something, right? If you don't have the hot car, motorcycle, if you're not a stud, well, how are you going to get girls to like you? Well, I know. I'll be nice to them. I won't be like the jerk. I'll listen to them talk about their problems. I'll be different than other men. I'll be there for them. And then they'll see what a great guy I am, and they'll like me. So there's a lot of factors that go into this training and this mindset that says if I'm just nice, if I avoid conflict, if I just please people, then I'll get what I want in life without too much work, too much challenge, or too much difficulty. And so that's just a few of the factors I think contribute to it. And everybody probably has their own unique story of what caused them to start managing their shame, managing anxiety, and using the 3 covert contracts. So we're all different, but there are some pretty common similarities.
Okay. And what would you say are some of the biggest challenges that men have when they're trying to learn to express their emotions and feelings with others?
That the world's going to come to an end. I heard a country song a few years ago. I think it was a country song. It said, you can't be crucified for the things you don't say. And that is such a nice guy philosophy. If I just don't say anything wrong, I can't get in trouble. So I hear nice guys use that phrase a lot. Well, I'm afraid I'll get in trouble. I'm afraid of doing something wrong. And I say, wait a minute. Adults don't get in trouble. Children get in trouble. You're not a child anymore. Just because your girlfriend gets upset at you, or your wife's mad at you, or even just because your boss is having a bad day, doesn't mean you're in trouble. And it can be a challenge for men to begin to realize it's okay to say what they want, and it's okay to say what they believe. And I know I went through that. I remember pretty early on, I was working with a woman therapist, and I was talking about my then wife, and basically I was complaining that, yeah, she'll just go on and on and on, talking about the same drama over and over and over again. And I said, I just get tired of listening to it after a while. The woman therapist, who was, oh, I don't know, 20 years older than me, said, well, you don't have to. I said, well, yeah, you do. If a woman's got problems, you have to listen to her talk about her problems till she's done. No, you don't. I said, yes, you do. I said, that's carved in stone. If you don't want a woman pissed off, you got to listen to them talk about their problems till she's done talking about it. And she says, no, you can tell her, I'm not interested, or I'm bored, or someone else later suggested, saying, give me the guy version. I want to know, but I don't want the whole girl version of it. And I remember the first time that I got the nerve up to tell my wife I wasn't interested in hearing the long drama story. I thought the roof was going to come down. I really thought she was going to blow up. And she goes, oh, okay, and went and called a friend and actually thanked me later on for telling her that I wasn't interested, because that way she wouldn't sit and talk to me, but that I wasn't interested. So the advice I give people, give recovering nice guys, this is number one piece of advice. Go find safe people, safe environment where you can talk about you, open up, reveal you, and begin releasing the toxic shame and anxiety that what you feel, think, and want is somehow bad and going to bring a negative reaction. So find safe people, a good friend, therapist, a mentor, a pastor, a men's group, 12-step group. Find a safe place to start revealing you.
Okay, and are you suggesting that through this process, men can learn to accept themselves for who they are?
Yeah, exactly. And that's where I learned how, is that, I mean, I remember sharing things about me that I thought were dark and terrible and nasty, and I would share them and people would just kind of nod and not be shocked, and kind of then they would start talking about something else. And I thought, oh, I guess maybe that wasn't quite so terrible, that I had that want or that wish or that desire or that sexual impulse or whatever it might have been. So yes, finding a safe place to talk about you and get support and validation for making your needs a priority is the most significant foundation towards that path to being an integrated male.
All right, I like where we're going so far. And in this process, how can men learn to embrace their masculinity to start building stronger relationships with other men?
That's a great question, because I would say that that's probably number two. Number one is find safe people. I mean, you're on this. This is good. Finding safe people to start revealing yourself to. And number two, start connecting with men. One thing that I've noticed, it seems to be a very predominant issue with nice guys, is that they're not real comfortable with men. Some are real comfortable with women. Some nice guys aren't comfortable with men or women. But in order to embrace our own masculinity, we got to get comfortable being with men. Many of us, because either we were teased as children, or we weren't real athletic, or our fathers were gone, or our fathers were mean to us. A lot of guys are trying to be different from other men, whatever that means, whatever we construct that in our head. But we're not different. We're more like everybody else, every other guy out there, than we are different from them. And thinking we're different actually disconnects us from our masculine core, our masculine soul. So when I started my own personal recovery, even before I knew it was personal recovery, or even knew that I had nice guy syndrome, two things I decided to do. One was to start being an honest person. And I started learning how to do that in the 12-step groups and the therapy. Second thing I decided to do was start connecting with men, because I'd gotten so fused with my wife, trying to please her, being there for the kids. I never left the house. I didn't go work out. I didn't play hoops. I didn't hang out with guys. I didn't go to ball games anymore. And I decided I'm going to start connecting with men. And I did. I went and joined the gym, joined a racquetball league, started a softball team, started taking road trips to baseball games with the guys I was meeting, started playing softball. I just started getting with men. And when I went to men's groups, I intentionally joined men's groups to be around other recovering men. And I did things, engaged in activities with them, and went and had dinner, went to movies, went camping. So I consciously started expanding my connection with men. And I'm 20 years later, I'm still consciously doing that. When I walk into a room, I will consciously connect with the men before I connect with women. And ironically, what I found is that actually makes me a lot more attractive to the women around, because I'm connected with men and I'm in a masculine place. So that has to be a conscious decision, because maintaining relationships with men can be a challenge. When we move, when we change jobs, when we change relationship, when we go through our various stages of life. And so I think it's really challenging that we have to consciously keep building that connection. And when guys say, well, how do I do that? I tell them that men usually connect around shared activity. So whatever you like doing, whether it's skateboarding, mountain biking, playing poker, Bible study, I don't care what it is, go find other men to share that activity. And then usually I find that our connection begins to grow beyond that activity. We actually begin to connect and get to know each other. So build relationships with men, do it around shared activity.
And then moving on with connecting with the opposite sex now, how can men have a more fun, fulfilling sex life with women?
Oh, oh man, we could do several podcasts on this one.
Should we?
As simple as this may sound, is that I tell guys all the time, if you want to have a better sex life, show up with your sexual agenda intact. Now, guys, again, black and white, say, well, come on like a perv. And I said, no, I'm not saying that. But I tell men, if you have shame about who you are as a sexual person, or if you think you have to hide your sexual agenda from women, how are they going to pick up on any kind of buzz from you? How are you going to build any kind of powerful emotional tension between you and the woman? If you're hiding from her, oh, I'm just talking to you because I find you interested. No, you're talking to her because she has boobs. Right? That's why you're talking to her. That's why you looked at her from across the room. And what's so funny is nice guys especially that approach women, if we do approach them, we repress our sexual agenda. Like we listen to them talk about their stories and buy them a drink or volunteer to help their sister move or whatever the case may be. There's no sexual agenda. And women tell me, they go, why do guys do that? We know why they're talking to us. They're talking to us because we have boobs and they're hoping they get to see us naked. So why do they hide that? So again, get comfortable with the fact that you're a sexual being and you have a sexual agenda.
Yeah, I think it's something that maybe newer guys or shy guys will absolutely have where they're holding something back and they're not very clear in their thoughts, their words, their actions. It's like they're hiding something, the real meaning behind what they're doing because they're afraid of just being very direct and just saying what you want. And really, that's just what works. That's what's going to get you the results. And it's what women respond to better in most cases.
Well, I know they like it. I have no doubt about it because I know my world changed when I quit hiding my sexual agenda, when I got over my internal belief system that women didn't like sex and women thought men who wanted sex were bad. When I got over those belief systems, now believe it or not, those still actually float around in the back of my brain a little bit. But when I finally kicked those out and started acting differently, I thought I'd landed on a different planet in terms of how women found me attractive, wanted to be sexual with me. I didn't know the world actually worked that way.
It's much better, actually.
It is. It's much better.
No holding back. All right, let's jump into the knowledge round.
Let's do it. Bring it.
Are you ready for the knowledge round?
I'm ready.
For you, the listeners of the Knowledge for Men podcast, Audible is offering a free audiobook download with a free 30-day trial to give you the opportunity to check out their awesome service. And you know what? Something I've noticed after interviewing hundreds of successful people is that they all read a ton of books. If you want to be successful, you've got to educate yourself. I don't always have time to sit down and read a book, so I personally recommend listening to audiobooks in your car, in the gym, or on the go. You can pick up for free any one of my favorite best-selling books like The Game by Neil Strauss, Hold On to Your Nuts by Wayne Levine, The Manual by W. Anton, Naked by David Wygant, The Natural by Richard Lovarina, or any other audiobook you want. Audible has over 100,000 titles to choose from. To download your free audiobook today, go to kfmbook.com. Again, that's kfmbook.com for your free audiobook today. Start learning, growing, and becoming the man you want to become now. Welcome to the Knowledge Round, where the guests will be asked rapid-fire questions to give the audience invaluable pieces of wisdom to help transform their lives. Starting in 3, 2, 1, showtime.
How would you explain removing the nice guy to a newcomer?
Removing the nice guy. I would basically say that a nice guy is a passively pleasing male who thinks he has to get other people's approval to get love, sex, and be happy. And to do that differently involves learning to make yourself a priority and reveal yourself to safe people.
Okay, and what was holding you back from removing your inner nice guy?
The main thing holding me back was awareness. I thought being a nice guy was a good thing, and I thought everybody should be that way. So I just wasn't aware that my paradigm was faulty and didn't work. And I would honestly say that that's true for many of the people who find my website or read my book, as they go, hey, I've read countless self-help books. I never knew this was the problem. So awareness.
All right. And what's the best advice you've ever received from a mentor?
Oh, probably the best advice I ever received was from a grad school professor who, when he'd give us a test like on parametric statistics, he would say, explain your answer in terms your grandmother would understand. And so that's kind of the way I try to do it when I communicate, is tell it in ways that my grandmother would understand.
I like it. Keep it simple.
Keep it simple.
All right. And what are your 3 most influential books and why?
Okay. The ones I recommend most often, number 1, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. It's a relatively easy read, but it changed my life 20-something years ago, and everybody I've ever recommended it to loved it. It's by Dr. Susan Jeffers. The Way of the Superior Man by David Data. Just an amazing, powerful book about masculinity that really touches on things that very few other people touch on. So The Way of the Superior Man, David Data. And then a couple of other favorites that I recommend a lot. The Road Less Traveled by Scott Peck, and that's best-selling ever self-help book. Another one is Passionate Marriage by Dr. David Schnarch. Excellent, excellent book. But the third book I'm going to claim is my third one because I just read it a couple years ago, been recommending it highly, and that is The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. Now, that's not The Art of War, which is an old book, but The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. He's a screenwriter and a novelist. He wrote The Legend of Bagger Vance. And it's all about resistance, how to overcome the resistance that keeps us stuck in life. And man, it's one of those baseball bats up the side of the head kind of book. Easy read, but I highly recommend it.
Oh, that's funny that you say that. I actually just purchased that book. I'm looking at it right now on my bookshelf. I'll have to get to it.
The War of Art. So you're going to have to overcome your resistance and actually start reading it.
How's that going to happen if I don't read it?
Read it. You'll love it. I promise. You'll be getting him on to do a podcast with him. I promise. It's that good.
All right. And on to the next question. What's one action one man can take right now that would help them remove their inner nice guy?
The first thing that comes to mind is to say, I want. Find some context at work, relationship, family, whatever, and say, I want. Now, here's a way you can actually really put this into effect in a really powerful way, and this freaks most nice guys out. Say to yourself, okay, before the day is over, I'm going to ask 3 people to do something for me that I can do for myself. I'm going to ask 3 people to do something for me that I can do for myself. It'll freak out the average nice guy, but it's a powerful exercise in beginning to say, I want, and to recruit other people to help us get our needs met.
All right, that's a good activity. And I have a scenario for you, Dr. Glover. Imagine you woke up and you were 22 years old. You had just graduated college. What would you do? Would you do anything differently?
You know what I would do, and it never crossed my mind to do it when I graduated from college, is that I'd travel. I would get out and go to different places around the world. Well, you can do it on the cheap and not have too many things tying you down. So I'd say get out, go someplace different in the world that you've never been. That's what I would do.
Traveling can be so powerful and really can open up your mind to a whole new world out there that exists. Well, getting deep now, on with the next question. Dr. Glover, if you had to write your obituary today, what would it say?
If I wrote my obituary today, it would say, he changed the world by being himself. Thanks for asking that question. I'd never really thought about it, but I like that. So thanks for asking me that.
Oh, well, I got more for you. Dr. Glover, what is your philosophy on life?
What is my philosophy on life? Be yourself, challenge yourself, have a good time.
All right, and this will be your last chance for any last words here. Any parting piece of guidance for the thousands of listeners today?
Yeah, don't try to do this by yourself. And I say that in No More Mr. Nice Guy, that we got to be the way we are because of a lot of family and social conditioning. And if we could overcome it by ourselves, we probably would have already done it. So yes, read good books, listen to good podcasts, but don't do this by yourself. That's the mistake many men make, is thinking, I can solve my problems by myself. go get therapy, go to a 12-step group, join a men's group, join some kind of support group, recruit a friend, share who you are, but don't try to do this by yourself. Get other people involved, and life gets much easier that way.
That's going to conclude the knowledge round. Let's go into what you're working on today and what's exciting you.
What I'm working on, what's exciting me, I launched a new website just over a year ago, about a year and a half ago, and I'd been actively working on that for about a year and a half, and I'm still really excited about what it does. It has my blog. I can sell podcasts. I have an online university there where men can take self-help courses. It's really just broadened my reach into the world. And kind of the way I put it, now that I've built the machine, I want to keep feeding the machine. And so the two things that I'm really looking at that are exciting are a couple of the concepts for a couple more books. One on relationships, where I talk with men about showing up and consciously setting the tone and taking the lead in the relationship. And then the other is a concept I've really been seeing over the last 2 to 3 years in the men I work with, and I'm calling it the ruminating brain. And it's about men that tend to live in this constant internal looping state in their mind of judging themselves, comparing themselves, rehashing their past mistakes, missed opportunities, always looking to the future, thinking how things are going to fail, how they're not going to work out. And I think it's a predisposed genetic wiring to have this ruminating type brain. And I don't think there's too much written about it, especially for men out there. So I'm really excited about starting to get that information put down. So most of the stuff I write starts out as an online class on my online university. So that's really where a lot of my excitement is, the courses that we keep adding to the online university.
And Dr. Glover, go ahead and give yourself a plug so all the listeners and men can get in contact with you.
Quite simple. Just go to drglover.com. That's drglover.com. That's the website I mentioned, and you can read about me. You can read a ton of past articles and blogs. You can listen to other podcasts and interviews. You can buy podcasts about relationships and dating. You can look at the classes that I offer. And I think whether you ever buy anything off that website or not, just visiting it has the power to change your life. So come take a look at drglover.com.
All right, Dr. Glover, thank you so much for being on the Knowledge for Men show and sharing your life story, your challenges, and some of the lessons you've learned along the way.
Andrew, thank you for asking me. I respect what you're doing. I do respect that, as you said, you quit your job because you felt so strongly about this. And man, I wish you all the best with it. And hopefully this interview will help spread the word to men and help build the foundation you're building as well.
Absolutely. I think together, this episode, you and I will impact a lot of guys out there. Thousands of listeners are on each episode, so we're going to do some work. All right, guys, that's going to wrap up episode 30 with Dr. Glover, No More Mr. Nice Guy. And just a heads up, guys, Knowledge for Men does have an online mastermind group called The Lion's Den, and right now it's on Facebook. It's a private Facebook group, and we got tons of guys in there. We got like over 50 guys in there, and it's really about how to grow every single day and become, a new version of yourself and wake up in a world that is extremely different from what you knew just a few weeks ago. There's a ton of smart guys in all different areas of life. We got some dating coaches on there. We have health and fitness instructors, guys who just read tons and tons of personal growth books. We've got some meditation guys on there, a ton of just guys from different backgrounds, successful business owners. And we help guys just, even in their health area, just how to fortify your health, have all the energy you want, and get the body that you're looking for. We talk about how to meet and date just beautiful girls that you're looking for, how to build an amazing social life, and how to develop the attitude of a true champion, the kind of person that you can stand tall and proud both in, good times and bad times. So how to build a career around your passions. And we discuss these topics and we support each other in our goals for 2014. We also have a recommended book list from all the Lion's Den members where they get to contribute 3 of their most influential books in each of the pillars of health, wealth, relationships, and growth. There's just a ton of new books on there that I've never heard of, and it's just an ultimate resource. Just briefly, if this is something you're interested in, you can just shoot me an email at andrew@knowledgeformen.com, or you can go to knowledgeformen.com and click on Lions Den at the top and schedule an appointment with me through there. So look forward to hearing from you. It's not expensive. It's only $20 a month to be a part of the group, and that's relatively really low compared to other groups out there. And for the amount of value that you're getting, it's really a no-brainer. Guys are seeing really great results. I'm in there every day, multiple times a day, commenting, providing my feedback, and it's just the value of 50 guys who are striving to improve themselves and reach their goals in 2014 is just a powerful force to be reckoned with, and I highly recommend that you get involved. All right, so that's the Lions Den. All right, guys, until next time.
Thank you for listening to the Knowledge for Men podcast show. It's been a pleasure having you be a part of a thriving community of men who want to crush it in all aspects of life. I'm on a mission here to inspire millions of guys, and with your help, we're going to make a dent in the universe. Check out knowledgeformen.com for a ton of free content that's designed to help you live a remarkable life. Again, that's knowledgeformen.com. I hope to see you there. And always remember, 2014 is the official year of the crush, where we take action to get the life we've always dreamed of. This is your host, Andrew Farabee, and until next time, let's do it.